welcome everybody to my first panel of the Unlicensed Therapist. I have done a bunch of these with MJ's Progress Not Perfection, but I wanted to try it with the Trauma Show to really dig deep and got it's really weird because the Addiction Show, everyone's kind of not the same kind of life, but I found a lot of the same answers. So I really wanted to dig deep with these questions. So just a trigger warning for anyone watching. This is going to cover all the bases of trigger warnings that ever existed. I know everyone's story here. Everyone's been on my show, some of you multiple times, and it's going to be a really raw episode. So just know that going into it, it's going to cover a lot of the trigger warnings that you could ever imagine. So I appreciate you all sitting down with me and doing this. Connie, April, if you all can introduce yourselves, you don't say where you're from, but just a little bit about yourselves. Connie, go ahead. I'm just going to go around the box for a second. Connie, go ahead.
Okay. Got 2 young adult children, 16 and 18. Dug this mom life out because this crap is hard.
How about you, April?
I am 14 years sober. I don't actually have any children of my own, but I have 5. I have 3 from my marriage, and I have 2 bonus children from a previous relationship where I was bonus mom. So I'm 50, going on 53, and I don't know, loving life.
What are you, bud?
I'm Foster, and I have 2 children that are adults. I have been clean, be almost 2 years in January. Just doing a recovery thing, chasing recovery instead of a bag. So.
And what about you, Jules? What do you want to say?
Hi, I'm Jules. The only child I have is my inner child that I'm trying to reparent a little bit. I have been sober for 9 years, or in recovery for 9 years, and I run Swift Steps, the recovery community for sober Swifties.
Awesome. Well, we're not going to go in around robin because I found that gets repetitive. So, but I'm going to try to get, if you don't want to answer a question, just say, I'm going to pass this one. You know what I mean? No big deal. You can pass an answer question. So you're not like having to answer everything because these are deep questions. But I will get started. And when I ask a question, it'll be for the group. And if you need me to re-say the question, I have no problem saying it again. But the first question I have is, and we'll start with Connie right up the top in the middle. Can you remember the moment your life split into a before and after? What do you remember most vividly about that day?
Well, I did struggle with alcoholism and, to deal with my trauma. And I realized my before and after when I started going to therapy. And I had left my ex-husband. He is diagnosed as a narcissist. And I started just working on myself and changing as a mom and focusing on, the positive things in my life and working through that trauma. Instead of saying I was working through it, I was actually doing the hard work and working through it. And I mean, the kids noticed it. People around me noticed it. I became a more positive person because I don't like people naturally, but I really didn't like people then. So when I started seeing myself, even like conversing with people at work and having work friends and stuff like that, I started noticing, I'm like, wow, like I'm working through this. It's changing me. So.
What about you, April? When did you see like a before and after, like most vividly?
The most vivid for me was step 7. No. Yeah, it's step 7 in AA. I have kind of a split there. It's like when I asked God to take all of me, good and bad, like he did. And so like I have a before sobriety and an after sobriety, because I did my steps within the first 90 days of getting sober. So, you know, it was still relatively early in my sobriety, but I can literally have a split. Like everything before that's like played on a movie, like the old time movie thing. That's the way that I see it. Like it's my story, but it's playing on a wall. And then the split before and after for trauma, you know, we had the discussion about the books. Like I have a before I read those books, The Mastery of Love and the Four Agreements, and an after. Like that's a big split for me, because realizing all of the things that I learned from those books on putting my trauma to rest and not letting it control me anymore, you know. And so I have a peacefulness in this part of my life versus chaos, even in recovery before that. So
Now, those books, I want to stop right there and see if anyone else in the group has ever heard of them or read them. What were they called again? The Four
the
Agreements?
mastery of the Four Agreements and The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz.
No. Jules, have you ever heard of them? Mastery of Love and the Four Agreements?
4 agreements I've read. Yeah.
What about you, Connie?
I haven't heard any of them. Mm-mm.
No, because I do want to. What were they mostly focusing on? Like, do you want to talk about just like what you got from them, real quick, April or Jules?
Sure. So what happened for me is I had a huge breakup in recovery in 2018, and I was suicidal and had a plan, and my higher power intervened. And a month later, a lady gave me these books. She gave me The Mastery of Love first. She said it's the second book, but that I was so sick, I needed the second book first. And I read it and I learned that like I was getting with men with the expectation of them becoming the person that I saw in my head. You know, everybody says, "Oh, I can change him." Well, I didn't think I could change him, but in my head, I'm like, I see all of his potential. He could become this. And he never did. And I got, you know, disappointed every single relationship. And reading that book, I found out that I needed to stop searching for people like that and find people and see people as they are, as they're showing me. And by doing that, I ended relationships quicker. Instead of staying in a relationship for 2 years, I'd stay in a relationship for 2 weeks and be like, no, this is not for me. and I would end it. And in 2021, I met a man and applied those principles, and he checked all of the boxes, and I'm married to him now. And, you know, I live happily with him today. Now, the Four Agreements, when I read it the following month, what happened there is I applied what it said in the book, not only about making assumptions. So I don't, you know, when somebody does something, I don't assume anything, and they're not doing things to me on purpose to hurt me. I can see it in a different perspective. But with the trauma in my childhood, um, I was able to kind of reset that in my head by saying I no longer agree with what my stepmother told me. I'm not fat. I'm healthy. I'm not ugly. I'm, you know, and beautiful, and so on and so forth. And those voices in my head kind of just it slowed down and then stopped. Like, because I truly came to believe those new agreements that I made with myself, and I dismissed the agreements that I had with my stepmother because of her, you know, I believed what she told me. And I, you know, I know that we're all, you know, different and everything, but we all have beauty in us in all different kinds of ways. So I was able to write down what she said and write down what I wanted to say and have that dialogue off of that piece of paper with my roommate who I was comfortable and felt safe with. And then after actually writing it down, reading it, and going back and forth with him, it was like life changing. So,
What did you get from Four Agreements, Jules?
So the 4 agreements, I actually I read a lot of things and then forget them. So I actually Googled it while we were sitting here, and they're all just like really like good pieces of advice. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. I think if you just like start from those places, you're always going to be starting from like a place of good and good intention. I don't know. I think it's just like really, really, really good advice and good words to live by.
Yeah. Now,
And then
Foster, back to question 1. Do you remember a before and after, like in your life, where like things like stopped and started again?
Well, I did drugs all my life, JD. So my before and after started when I got clean, and I decided to surrender my life to God. This is the one question that I didn't want you to ask. But and my life started to change. I'm learning who I am. My emotions are running rampant, but it's getting easier. Yeah, that's about all I got.
That's fine. Yeah. What about you,
Yeah.
Jules? Do you remember before and after for you?
yeah, I thought about this question a lot, and it's not so much like a trauma answer. It's just it's the only before and after I've got for you, which is before I decided that I was going. Actually, that is a lie. I do have 2 before and afters now, but they're both related to addiction. When I was in rehab, I was having this conversation with this like 18-year-old kid, and and a bunch of other kids. They were sitting around in a circle and they were talking about like, this is my 6th rehab, this is my 10th rehab, this is my 9th rehab, and they got to me, and I was like one of the older people there at 30, and I was like, this is my first time in treatment, and they were like shocked. And this kid that was sitting across from me, he just like looked at me and just with such like pleading in his eyes was like, get it, or no, he was like, please, please, please get it now. Get it now. This is your first time. Like, get it now. And I had like a moment of clarity, and I got up and I asked one of my counselors, because we weren't able to just like pick up the phone. And I was like, I need to call my husband. Like I really need to call my husband before I decide to not tell him that there are fentanyl patches in the house. Because I was planning on just using when I got home. And so I called him and I told him where they were. And like I told him where, anything that I had was left, and was just totally honest, and decided that I was going to give it a shot and try to do this sober recovery thing. So that was like one before and after, where I had that moment of clarity, or that God moment, or whatever you want to call it, where I decided like, I'm going to do this. And then the other moment would be when I decided that I was going to stop being ashamed of my story and not recovering out loud. And then like that was the second time that there was like a before and an after, where I was just like, you know what, fuck that. I don't care. I'm a recovering addict. This is my story. And if you want to judge me, that says more about you than it does about me. And that was like the second after.
Yeah, I feel like we all had that. Now, the next question, I know for a fact you all can answer, so I'm definitely going to ask this question. I'm going to start with Foster. When did you first realize the adults in your life weren't going to protect you? Can you walk us through what that moment felt like or looked like for you?
Are we able to say
Everything,
whatever?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. The moment on my 5th birthday when my aunt and my stepdad started abusing me, sexually abusing me. My mom was just outside and doing something, drinking, doing whatever, and I was being sexually abused on the inside of the house. I knew then that I didn't have any protection, that these people were hurting me, and I had no control. You know, they were blowing marijuana smoke in my face, try to keep me calm. And he wasn't hurting me, but I was having to. He was in the corner performing, and I was having to perform on my aunt. And yeah, I knew right then. At 5 years old, I knew. So
Yeah. April.
So for me, like, I didn't know that all of that stuff was like wrong. You know, the 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 time that I realized adults are not going to protect me, I was in 6th grade, and me and my friends were sitting on the bleachers, just kind of huddled up, and we were talking about sex, like, because, you know, 6th grade, you talk
Yeah.
about stuff that, you know, that's going on. And you know, so we talked amongst ourselves, and we were up there giggling and stuff, and the principal pulled me aside, and he's like, "What were you guys talking about?" And I hung my head in shame, and I was like, "We were talking about sex." And he just reprimanded me and sent me on my way, and, like, not even questioning why a 6th grader was talking about sex. And it was because all of us were being abused at home. And I just didn't realize that was wrong. But when the principal turned away, I was like, huh, yeah, nobody's going to believe anything I say. And, you know, just like my stepmom told me. So that was my realization.
Yeah. What about you, Jules? Was there a moment you realized that like adults weren't going to protect you that you remember?
Yeah. So there are two moments, but I'll tell you like the first one. I must have been like 3 or 4 years old because my brother was like an infant, or so I was 3. Yeah. My dad was beating the fuck out of my mother, and I knew I felt unsafe. So if I felt unsafe, my little baby brother must have felt unsafe. So I went and I pulled him out of his like carrier or whatever. And when I was younger, the TV that we had was like a big piece of furniture, like it was a unit. And so I remember taking him behind it and being behind that unit and like holding him and huddling there and just knowing that like, okay, like I'm the protection here, you know, like I'm going to protect him. Nobody's going to protect me, but I'm going to protect him because that's just, you know, so there was that moment. And then a moment like much later on, one of my stepfather's friends came on to me when I was 12 years old, and I thought that like heads were gonna roll when I told him. And that's not what happened. He was still allowed to come over to our house, stay over the house at night and stuff like that. And yeah, I felt really unsafe and just knew that like, oh, okay, like it doesn't matter what happens. Like my mom's never gonna go back for me.
Yeah. You froze for a second, but I got all the audio at least. Connie, do you remember, Connie, a moment that, you know, adults weren't going to protect you?
So all of my life, I've just been around abuse and trauma and drugs and alcohol. And so to me, it was normal. Like that was a normal life. Like every weekend we'd get together, the family get together, party, drink, smoke, all the things. But when I realized that no one is really going to protect me, I was 16 years old, which is crazy because this is how so used to this I was. It was when my mom was strongly considering letting me at 16, after she let me sleep with this 22-year-old, she was considering letting me move to another state with a grown ass man. And I remember telling her, "Are you out of your fucking mind?"
Mm.
And she's like, "Well, I just thought about it. It was." Now I'm just sitting here like, this shit cannot be normal, because I see people around me and it's just like their parent is not letting them even be with an 18-year-old, let alone a 22-year-old. So at that moment, I actually had moved out of my house shortly thereafter. And I've basically been on my own since then, because if she wasn't going to protect me, why the hell am I going to stay there? So and it's sad that it took me that long to realize, you know, I was bullied by family members. I was abused by family members. And my mom, it was normal. Being Hispanic, it's something you just don't talk about. You don't tell your business. You don't, you don't tarnish the family name. And it was just one of those realizations that I was like, I'm working. At the time we had IHOP where we grew up. So I was working there and I was making really good money at 16 years old. And I was also working at American Eagle, and I was like, I could live on my own. And I had a friend. And when I found myself being able to sleep at night and not having to worry about, we used to call, I'm not going to say my mother's name, but we used to put Hurricane in front of her name, because she would literally come in the middle of the night and just fucking trash everything and wake us up. So when I got my first good night's sleep, I said, this is what feeling safe is like. And I never looked back, ever.
Yeah, that's good. Now, April, I'm going to start with you this one. Did you ever experience any sexual trauma as a child? When did you first realize what happened to you wasn't your fault?
Um, so I don't have memory of it, but I know I was sexually abused by my biological father. He abused every single one of my sisters, and I did witness him taking my sister to do that to her. I was abused by my stepmother's brothers, um, each of them multiple times. Um, Raped as a teenager. It just And what was the second part of the question?
When did you realize what happened to you wasn't your fault?
Therapy.
Therapy?
Yeah, I got sober and I did the 12 steps, and then about 5 years later I went into therapy. And my therapist just kept saying, I am so sorry that you had those people as parents. The parents are supposed to protect you. Parents are supposed to, protect you from this stuff, and none of your parents protected you. They actually abused you in multiple ways. And she would just tell me each time I would tell her about what was going on, she's like, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Normal parents shouldn't be like that. So, um, I know it's not my fault. It, but therapy, yeah.
What about you, Connie?
I was going to pass on this question, but um, I dealt with sexual abuse from different members of my family, including a sibling. Um, and like I said, that it wasn't talked about or anything like that, but I knew when, basically like April, when I went into therapy, when it happened to my children, and when it happened to my children from this sibling of mine, and I wanted to rip his fucking face off. I realized then that I was like, this is how my mom should have reacted. This is how she should have reacted. The way I'm ready to rip his face off. I have not spoken to him since 2015. When I called him and told him I was going to kill him, and I meant every word of it, he blocked me. I haven't spoken to him since. And in that moment, I said, I need to get through therapy, because a lot of anger just started coming up. And I became super angry because it happened under my mother's care. And I was angry at myself because how did I let this happen to my children? She didn't protect me. Why did I think she was going to protect my kids? So when I went to therapy, they're like, none of your what you went through is normal. None of it is normal. And I thought my reaction was abnormal because my mom didn't react so angrily when I had told her. But she said, no, your reaction is normal. Like, that is how a mom is supposed to protect her children. And your reaction is normal. So I went from realizing that I'm not abnormal. It's okay to be angry that someone hurt my children. And because that's not normal, they normalized it and it's not. You shouldn't go through that. Sex should be something intimate with someone that you love, but not with a family member, not forced. And it really took me going through therapy to realize, because honestly, I'm not going to lie, I was very promiscuous because to me, sex was just sex. It was just something to fulfill a physical need. But I'm like, my kids are little. They're 3 and 5. Why would you want somebody to fulfill a physical need with children that young? So therapy is when I realized, and therapy it has brought me a long way.
Yeah. What about you, Jules?
So it would be the situation with my mom's friend, or my stepfather's friend. You know, I knew it wasn't my fault when it happened, but when I was telling my ex-husband the story, probably like 10, I don't know, 9-ish years ago. So that would have made me like 31. And I was like 12 when it happened. I was saying to him, like, you know, I was like 12 and I was like feeling myself and I put on like these little jean shorts and I had hoops on. And so like I was like taking responsibility for it in the story, you know. And he stopped me and he was like, stop, like right now. He's like, I don't care if you walked out naked and you like did like a come hither shits with him. He was the adult. He should not have been coming to you. It does not matter like what happened. And he's like, that's not even what was happening. So then it took that long. It took for him to really like point that out to me that like, no, you did nothing wrong in this situation. This grown ass man came onto you when you were 12 years old. It doesn't like you shouldn't have been able to put anything on to entice him, you know? So that's when.
Yeah. Foster, now you said your 5th birthday. Did that continue on?
Yeah, that continued on for a couple years, and then mom divorced that man, and then she brought in another one 2 weeks later, and it started all over again until I was 11. And so that's three people right there. And then when I was 16, my stepmother sexually assaulted me. I know that seems weird at 16, but I became the opposite. I was not promiscuous at all because sex was so freaking twisted to me that I thought first, as a young kid, I made a decision. I'm not going to sleep with anybody until I get married, the woman that I'm going to marry. And it, because sex was it was violent. It was dirty. I was told I was a punk, that I was a fag, that that I deserved to what was happening. And so sex became the last thing that I wanted in my life. But when I was 16, I was living with my stepmom. Her and my dad had divorced, so she really wasn't my stepmom, but she had been. And I woke up in the middle of the night and she was on top of me. She was only 5 years older than me. And I consider that sexual assault. It wasn't something that I freely did. But sex to this day is if my aunt did not achieve orgasm, I was beaten at 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. So it had affected me to the point where once I did became from our sexual active, that if a woman didn't achieve that, I'm screaming, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry in bed. It just, I'm sorry if I went off on a tangent, but it just kind of,
No, it's fine.
this one gets me because I just can't see, I don't understand the mentality of a person that does this type of thing. And it still drives me crazy even after years of therapy and trying to work through it. I still get wound up. But when I realized it wasn't my fault was my mom and I hadn't talked in like 3 or 4 years, and she called me to dinner one night, and my mom was the type of person that would not take responsibility for any of her actions. She would say, no, I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. That didn't happen. Well, one night we sat down and she said, did such and such hurt you? I said, yes. Did such and such hurt you? Yes. Did such and such hurt you? Yes. And she said, well, I thought so. And I thought to myself, my God, if I thought somebody was hurting my kids, they'd be 6 feet under in a heartbeat. There would be no question about it. And I knew right then that it wasn't my fault. All those years of questioning my manhood, questioning my everything, my everything about me, questioning it, whether I was gay, whether I was this, whether I was that, came to a halt when she said, I thought so. So that's my answer, JD.
Thank you, Foster, for saying that. Jules, what does feeling safe mean for you now, physically, emotionally, sexually?
Oh God. Well, I tried to think about this, and I was like, okay, the answer to this is having my own money. Like, that's what makes me feel safe, because that is what was held over like any kind of like resources or like you don't know what abuse is. You get to go to the doctors and I don't do this to you and you're not sexually abused that way. And there are parents that do these things to their kids. And so, yeah, just having my own money so I can decide whatever kind of moves I want to make in this world. And I'm not relying on anybody else for them. Like I know that like financially wasn't the question, but like that was the only place that my brain went.
No, yeah, you can. Yeah, those were just examples of like things that I could think of to like.
No, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But like trauma wise, like because it's a trauma show, like that's exactly where my body went. It was like wallet, like I need to know where my next check is coming from. I've never not known where my next check was coming from ever since I've started working. I started working as soon as I could babysit. I was working at like 12, 13 years old. And then I had a job at a pizza place when I was 15. Like, and I've always had 2 jobs, always. So yeah, that's it.
What about you, Foster? What does feeling safe look like for you today?
To be honest with you, I still isolate. I protect myself from the world. You know, because of my heart failure, I can't work, so I don't have that opportunity to do the wallet thing. But I understand that 100%. But yeah, I would say isolation, just to be honest. I know that's not a good thing for us, but that's my one thing.
Yeah. April?
I agree with, I'm sorry, I can't see your name.
Foster
Joel?
Jules.
Yeah, I agree with Joel. Yeah, the financial security, like even getting into relationships with the men that I was with, like, my ex-husband. He's the one that introduced me to a lot of the drugs that I did and got addicted to. And, he got to a point where he didn't work, and that was an abusive relationship as well. I did my part too. I will take my part on that. But like going into therapy, like I told my therapist, I'm like, she said, "How was your stepfather?" And I was like, "He was a good guy. He didn't abuse me." And she's like, "So you consider it a good person just because he's not abusing you?" And I said, "Yeah, he's," and that is I can feel safe with someone if they're not abusing me, even if they're taking advantage of me, even if they're not working. And that's how it was before I got in this relationship, before I read those books. But in the relationship now, like, I am completely safe. I feel safe with my husband, next to my husband, in his arms, not in his arms. Like, I'm going through menopause. So the sex thing, it ain't happening. That's just how it is. And he accepts that, we will make dates and things just don't happen. So, like, I still feel safe with him, even though that insecurity of, I'm not sexually pleasing him. He's like, it happens. We're getting older. It is what it is. That is like the safest that I could ever feel with someone, not having to worry that he's cheating on me or lying to me or doing things behind my back, and he takes care of his own finances. I take care of mine. So we have each other's names on our bank accounts, but I pay my bills out of mine. He pays his bills out of his. So
What about you, Connie? What does safe look like for you?
I have to agree with Jules and April, but I have to definitely say my boundaries. My family calls me the boundary queen. Like, I was the biggest people pleaser, and I have so many boundaries, whether it be physical, sexual, financial. My husband now, which my daughter chose for me, might I add, because according to JD, my picker was broke. So I dealt with a lot of abuse, physically, financially, emotionally, mentally. When I tell you I was deteriorating, I was. So when I met my now husband, our first date lasted 12 hours. I put my boundaries on the table. I said, this is what I will tolerate. This is what I will not tolerate. And you can decide what you want to do after this date. But I'm going to put it out on the table, because before I would not tell people my expectations. I was like you, April. Like, as long as they weren't abusing me, I was like, okay, I'm going to take whatever you give me, because something is better than nothing. But I had to learn to have boundaries. And when I tell you, like, my family will say something like that, don't ask Connie. She's the boundary queen. And I'm glad you know it, because it protects my peace. It protects my children. Because if I'm mentally good, my husband's mentally good, my children are mentally good, and no one can take that away from me. And that is probably the safest place that I will feel, is when I tell somebody, no, I won't tolerate that. And I stand firm on it, because if I don't protect me, nobody else will.
Yeah, I like that. The boundary queen. Foster, when you get triggered, what happens inside your body? Is there a tightness or a rush or a sense that time collapses? What's your personal signal that you're triggered?
Feel like my heart's dropping, that it just drops down into my stomach. And then I start to shake and get sweaty.
What
Yeah.
about you, Jules?
Usually when I get triggered, it's like because I'm angry. So I just get like, usually I find myself like really pissed. I go to like rage and like wanting to destroy somebody else's life if like they upset me, from like nothing to like so quick. So that's when I know that I'm really being triggered, because I don't behave like that anymore.
Connie?
I have to agree with Jules. Like, I get really angry, but before I get to that point, my heart starts racing and I can feel the anxiety just coming, and I just feel like there's like this huge lump in my throat. And honestly,
Mhm.
some people don't understand it, but it's like I feel like I'm about to lose my voice. Like, I just sit there and I'm just like, what do I say? Like, my inner child comes back out. Like, you can't say anything. And then next thing you know, it gets to the point where I'm like, Jules, I get angry and I will go from 0 to 100 really quick. And my tongue is very lethal. So I had worked on that throughout the years. And when I find myself like getting to that point, I'm like, I remember the first argument I got into with my husband, my now husband, and he said something and I didn't even realize it was a trigger. And I literally, it was just like rah, attack mode. And he was just standing back like this and didn't know what to say. And then I caught myself and I was like, I'm sorry. I said, I didn't even realize that was a trigger. So it's kind of like what Jules said. Like, I mean, I'm going to tear you down before you tear me down. And it's not right, but it's a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I should have known you two would have almost the same answers. I don't think you either realized, but you grew up within 15 minutes of each other. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wow.
Okay, can I just very quickly, like just off of what you said, Connie? Okay, we had a whole in Swift Steps we do song breakdowns. Yesterday we did the song "This Is Me Trying," and there's a lyric that she says, "And my words shoot to kill when I'm mad. I'm sorry about that." And everybody in the meeting, that was like what we talked about. It was like how our words can be like a double-edged sword. We can be so thoughtful and compassionate and wonderful with our words, and then just fucking like just slice somebody down so easy. It's so fast, and not even realize it, and then be like, "Fuck, what did I do? I did it again."
Yep. That's
What about you,
exactly it.
April? How does it when do you get triggered? What happens to your body, inside your body?
So I get a fluttering in my chest. It kind of feels like all of the blood just like drains out of my chest, and I like got a big hole, and my heart's just sitting there fluttering like that. That's what that feels like to me. And I go quiet. I don't get the anger. I don't get the I want to kill somebody. I go quiet because I get into fight or flight, and then my whole body just tenses up. Like I have back pain um really really bad just because of sitting in fight or flight all the time from the trauma. So
That's how I get to April. I get completely quiet, and my head takes over, and I'm trying to think of what to do or what to say, and
where to go?
Yep. Jules, how do you explain flashbacks or disassociation to someone who's never experienced them?
Oh, I really liked this question. Dissociation is like it's like the like emergency exit in your brain. Like you're like half outside so you can survive the moment. It's like the ejection seat, like whatever you have to do to like not be in that moment. Like I have a memory of this is the craziest thing, but I know I was dissociated because otherwise, how the fuck do I have this memory and it seems normal to me? My father was beating the shit out of my mother, standing over her. She was sitting in a chair and he was just punching her in the face. And I was down the hall going, "Take one, take two." Like it was like I was like a movie fucking director, right? Like, what? How is that my memory of that? Like it's just so yeah, if I was really in that moment and like really, really knew what was going on, I don't know, maybe I would have ran in and tried to break it up or something like that. But like my brain was protecting me. Yeah, I guess it's your brain protecting you.
Yeah. April?
Flashbacks, I kind of like it's kind of like I was talking about my past, seeing it like an old time movie projector on the wall. It's like, flashbacks are like that in your brain. And for me, because I have PTSD, that's the only psych diagnosis that I have since recovery. when I was using, I was diagnosed bipolar. I was diagnosed severe depressive disorder, a whole big long list. And all I have now is PTSD. And through therapy, I learned that PTSD, when we are going into it and we have those flashbacks, we're sitting and feeling and smelling and hearing everything that we saw and felt and heard and smelled back then. So anything can really set you off. Um, I was telling my therapist about a time where I went in. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I just went immediately into a PTSD episode, and I don't remember. I don't know why. I just was shaking and the heart thing and fight or flight. And she said, you could have smelled the cologne that your rapist was wearing when he raped you, and you wouldn't know why you're feeling that, but your body remembers. And your body remembers enough to where when you smell that, it goes into fight or flight and it goes into a PTSD episode. And you feel everything like you were feeling back then. And so I've learned coping mechanisms to get me out of that, but I, I don't really know how to explain to someone who's never been through it. Like most of the people that I've ever talked to about that kind of stuff, they've they've been through it. They've been through some trauma. So
Connie, how do you explain flashbacks or dissociation?
So like a flashback to me is like they said, it's like a movie. Like it's kind of like you're seeing your life again. Like you're seeing yourself in that moment, but it's like an out of body experience. Like it's like kind of like watching somebody else go through it. Disassociation would be kind of like you just take it's kind of like what Jules said when she was saying take one. I remember when my ex-husband was beating the shit out of me. I mean, even the judge was like, I'm surprised your face isn't deformed. And I just became numb. I couldn't fight back. I just took it. My mind went somewhere else, and I just took myself out of that situation because I was so used to getting abused. At this point, he was beating the hell out of me so much that it was almost a daily occurrence. So I was just like, at this point, my mind was literally, I will never forget the day he locked my kids into the bathroom and he was beating the hell out of me. And I'm literally sitting here thinking about, okay, well, I got to make sure to clean up this blood. But after I clean up this blood, I got to make sure I have food and snacks for the kids. Like my mind, as I'm getting my ass beat, is onto something else. I literally just thought about something completely different as I'm getting my ass beat and blood's coming everywhere. I'm just thinking clean this and then do this. It's like a checklist in my mind.
Foster?
Yeah, just like everybody said, Connie just said, I consider it like a movie and I'm the star of the show. And everything that's going on is real to me. I smell, I feel, I can see everything that's going on. It's real to me, even though it's not real, and then dissociation, I just numbing out and going to another place. So,
Well, speaking of numbing out, I'm going to keep on you, Foster. What did your addiction give you that nothing else could?
a sense of security, a sense of love, a sense of I don't approve. I mean, I don't know what the word is. A sense of love and a sense of security. That's what I'd say.
It's kind of, I'm going to piggyback off of Foster. I actually, when I was a functioning alcoholic, I felt invincible. Like I felt like this bottle won't let me down. It's going to get me the feeling that I want to feel. It's not going to get me the feeling that I have to feel. And it was just in those moments. And the fact that I was a functioning alcoholic was actually really scary because being an alcoholic is scary enough. But the fact that I can function, I still went to work. I was in a service. So I was still going to work. I was still being a mom. But I was always, you can smell the alcohol on me. And I was just like, hey, like anything, it was like a shield. It was like a shield kind of. So nothing anybody said to me was really, I really didn't care, because when I sobered up for that little bit of time, it didn't really, sometimes I didn't even remember what half the people said to me. So it was kind of like a shield, and I kind of felt safe, but that was the wrong type of safe that I was feeling.
What would your addiction give you, April?
Survival skills. So going back to therapy, like my therapist literally said that had I not become an addict, alcoholic, that I would have killed myself a lot sooner, and been successful at it. I mean, there was multiple times that I attempted but was not successful. But she literally said, I think you becoming an addict and an alcoholic and using that to quiet the voices and to numb the pain, the emotional pain, that probably saved my life.
Jules?
I want to comment on what April said real quick, just because I heard RuPaul in an interview once say, thank God for the good drugs, the good safe drugs that were out there when I was out there using. They kept me alive long enough to find help, because it was an escape, and he would have killed himself otherwise, exactly like you said. And I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to share that because I had heard it before, and that's why I'm such a believer in harm reduction, just because I want to keep people alive long enough to, find the help that they need. So, so my addiction gave me 4 things that nothing else could. Compassion for other people, because I didn't believe that addiction was a disease until it happened to me. Humility, perspective, and understanding. I'm just like a better person after the fact.
And Connie, I'll keep it on you. Or not Connie. Jules, I'll keep it on you. How did get clean or sober force you to face your pain that you buried?
Oh, this one, I don't know that I have an answer for it, because I haven't really dug too deep into the past and to my childhood trauma and stuff like that. So I don't know exactly what it was that I was trying to bury when I started using. I never really found an answer for that. I just know that when I was prescribed them for chronic pain, I really liked them, and I thought that, the fucking ego I had, I really thought okay, well, when it's time to stop taking them, I'll just wean myself off of them. No biggie. And I swear on my life, that is what I thought. So I don't know. I really don't know what it was, but there is clearly a lot. But maybe perfectionism, just trying to do all of the right things the right way and to not be like my parents. So then I just eventually did the thing that they did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Foster?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Yep. How did getting clean or sober force you to face the pain you buried?
Oh, because it all came back. All the emotions, the night terrors, the feelings, that made you feel creepy crawly. All of it came rushing back, and I knew that if I didn't seek therapy, if I didn't seek a higher power, that I was gonna die. I was gonna unalive myself, because it was so much, and it felt so overwhelming that I didn't know what to do. So,
What about you, April?
Well, I was reliving the trauma in my own head on a daily basis, so it didn't really bring anything else much up. And I just had to face what was going on in my own head without I mean, it was raw dogging me because I wasn't medicated, and thank God for the steps, this, and being able to come to realize that, I can forgive myself, because the biggest resentment I had was against myself for not doing everything for everyone, and, you know, and doing the bad stuff to the people that I did do, when I realized, my finger was always pointing, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. If you guys wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have had to do all of this, and taking responsibility for my part in it, like, that was the biggest step in my recovery, I think, that I could have taken. So I hope that answered the question.
It does, yeah, of course. And Connie, what about you?
It's kind of like Foster has said. Once you get sober, all the issues are still there. You still got to deal with them. They didn't go away. You just numbed them. So when I didn't do a step program, I became sober because I was like 130 pounds soaking wet, and my doctor looked at me and said, you can outdrink a 300-pound man. Like, that is not normal. You're going to kill yourself. I had young children, and I couldn't see myself leaving my children behind because I didn't trust anyone to have my children. So I had to, like, it was the worst withdrawals of my life. And I didn't want to feel that again, but I found myself angry all the time. And I was like, why the fuck am I so angry? Well, the issues were still there. The trauma was still there. The memories were still there. I didn't work through them. I was numbing them. So when I finally got into therapy and started working through them, it kind of forced me to become a better person. And I found myself becoming my mother, in a sense of, no, I wouldn't let somebody abuse my children, but I was just a raging bitch. Like, my mom never takes accountability for what she does. And I was just like, no, it's everyone else's fault. Yeah, when I was younger, but when I became an adult, the decisions, I made them myself. I had a choice. I'm going to work through it, or I'm just going to go ahead and numb it. And those are the choices I made. So everything that happened to me when I was an alcoholic is my fault. And I was just like, the therapist forced me to realize that. And that's when I was just like, crap, I really just buried the stuff. I didn't really work through it.
Connie, let's start with you for this one. When did you start seeing yourself as more than your trauma story?
I want to say, as my kids got older, and I hadn't talked to my mom in years. When I tell you years, I mean, right now we're no contact again, but I was living in Tennessee, and I wanted to see my grandmother so badly, because my grandmother and my grandfather were like, they were the world to me. And my grandmother couldn't travel by herself, so I had to sit there and make a decision. And I let my mom come into my home, and I don't let very many people in my home. And I was in my early 30s, and my mom looked at me, and she just said, I'm so proud of you. And that was the first time that my mother ever told me she was proud of me. And this sounds so jacked up, but in my mind, I said, I'm no longer her, because her life is still fucked up. Like, it literally, I mean, it sounds bad. It really does. Like, it sounds super, super, super bad, but it literally, that's when I was just like, I'm way more than what has happened to me, because I have literally worked through it. And my mom is 56 now, and she still acts like she's that 15-year-old child because she's never grown up. So that's when I realized, like, shit, I did this. Like, I did it. I did the work. It's noticeable. My life, I had a beautiful home. We have a beautiful home now, but like, I had a beautiful home. I was stable. And finally she recognized it, and other people around me recognized it as well.
That's right, because your mom had you at 16?
She had me at 17.
17.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Were there any other teen moms, like not you as teen moms, but like April, was your mom a teen, or Jules or Foster, any of your parents' teens?
She
No.
had
My
me
mom-
at 18.
18?
Yeah,
Okay.
she had me at 18, so she was pregnant before 18.
Yeah.
My mom was 19. She had me when she was 20, and my dad was definitely way too old. I think he was like 28, something like that. I learned about that recently. Yeah, it didn't really
Jules,
look.
we'll go to you. When did you start seeing yourself as more than your trauma story?
Oh, God. You know, I don't know if I ever have, dude. Because like honestly, like my whole life is about my story now, right? With like doing like panels and having these kinds of conversations and being in recovery meetings every single day. I don't know, or maybe through doing that, because I'm seeing that like sharing it is more than just me, and there are so many of us that have so many of these similar experiences, um, that like it's not just me, and talking about it can help other people. So I am more than just what's happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Foster?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Through sharing my story, it I stopped living being who I was, carrying the labels that they put upon me. Um, I share with addicts all over the world, and that has given me the freedom from that trauma, expressing it and sharing it. It still hurts sometimes because we don't forget. I don't forget, but it's still a freedom.
Mhm.
April?
I agree with what's been said. Like when I got into AA and started doing the giving back and being a sponsor and telling my story and talking to women, and if you hear all of the other stories, like, oh yeah, that happened to me, that happened to me, that happened to me, and it's like, oh wait, it's not just my story, it's millions of other people's stories too. And, so then it's like, oh, okay, I can overcome this, you know, and I don't really have a, start, stop, or when it happened, but like, I'm just glad it did.
April, I'm going to have you answer this next one.
Okay.
What's if you could speak to the version of yourself still in the thick of it, what would you say?
In the thick of the childhood abuse,
Yeah.
tell somebody, go to grandma, grandpa, tell somebody, get the fuck away from these people. Yeah.
Jules?
Um,
For you, the trauma of like your parents and like, being addicts and, the abuse with them.
what would I say? What would I say to myself? This is the question. Oh God. Uh, I don't know. I feel like I would want to say, like, you feel unsafe because you are unsafe. You're not crazy. You're not confused. You're right. This is wrong and you know it. And don't let this ruin your ability to trust yourself, and to trust your intuition. Don't let it be warped by these adults who are clearly just not living the right way, or living in the way that they're telling you and everybody else that they should be living, or they are living. So yeah, I don't know. So just really like just trust that deep knowing within yourself, because you're not wrong.
Foster, what would you tell yourself at 5?
I think I'd say, this is wrong. It's hard, but you're going to make it through it. and eventually you'll be a man, and none of this will matter. You'll be able to use it for the goodness of others.
Connie, what about you?
Basically, what everybody else has said. I just want to add that when I was younger, going through the thick of it, I didn't want to be a mom because I didn't want to be like my mom. So I would say everything they're all saying, but I'd also tell myself, you're going to be a good mom. You're going to be a good mom. You're not going to be like her. Um, and that's just basically it. Because I think everyone hit the nail on the head, honestly, because we've all been through some shit one way or another.
Yeah. We just got two more questions, and I'll start with Foster. Did anyone else's story that you heard so far today remind you of a part of your own that you hadn't looked at in a while?
I think all of you. Um, Jules, when she talked about her dad beating her mom, um, that happened a lot in my home, and I haven't looked at it in a long time. I think because I'm so wrapped up in my own crap that I didn't look at it. But yeah, that kind of hit me. But everybody's story has brought something back.
What about you, Connie?
I want to say the same. Foster's story. I do want to say, Foster, that as I am very proud that you joined this panel because not very many men talk about the sexual abuse that they went through. And I think it'll help other men out there because they think it cannot happen to me. I'm a boy. It doesn't happen to boys. It does happen to boys. But I want to think just how young it started for you. Part of my trauma is my son was probably about that age when he was abused, and it kind of like brought back that memory. But I mean, everyone's story it just brought back something, and not in a negative way, in a positive way. It makes you think, and it reminds you of what you've gone through, and that you're not alone.
What about you, April?
Same thing. Jules, when she was talking about um, the parents and that, like, I had totally forgot. Well, not really forgot. Some memories just go to the back of your mind, and then things, like you said, it triggered it. And you know, I place a lot of blame on my mom, but yet my mom's mentally ill, and she should have been there to protect me. Blah blah blah, and all of those things that I do believe she should have, but I also believe that you know, there were times when she was getting the shit beat out of her by the man in her life. And just that reminder, it shows me to have some compassion, reminds me to have some compassion for my mom because, although she shoulda, coulda, woulda, and didn't protect me, she didn't know how to protect herself either.
Yep.
So,
And
and I want to
Leslie,
thank Foster also for coming on the panel. Just the raw, gritty truth that you are showing today. I'm just I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude that you're on here sharing that part of your story because uh like she said, not a lot of men will get on here and tell this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm proud of all of us.
Jules?
I want to echo everything that everybody said about Foster coming on here because I completely agree with you. I listened to Armchair Expert, and Dak Shepard talks about, hate being abused as a young boy, and I just like have so much respect for him for doing that, because he's brought so much, like so many guys call in and say like, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have shared my story. So like, you're really inspirational in that way. And I think you know that, but it's really good to hear it, from time to time, because we do talk ourselves into thinking that we're not doing anything good, or we're not making a difference. So I just want to say that, but also, yeah, everybody's story brought something up, but for me, there was also, you guys had all spoken to sexual assault or sexual abuse, and there was one incident that happened when I was 17 years old, and I never really looked at it as assault or abuse. But it totally was. And I don't think I really had accepted it until like sitting here and having this conversation, even though like my husband at the time told me like that was totally like, when I told him the story, I was like, this is just like this crazy story. And he was like, no, that is sexual assault is what that is. And I was like, oh, and it took me like a really long time, really long time. So thank you for that. But yeah, that's what came up.
Okay. Thank you guys. And this is the last one, and we'll go around the horn with this one. So we'll start with Connie. What's something you're finally proud of yourself for surviving?
All the abuse, like getting through all the emotional and physical pain. It's hard. There are still women out there who are dealing with it, who can't get out, who feel that they can't get out. They feel stuck. And I'm just proud that I got out of it. I've had abuse all my life. It was normal. It was a normal thing. I'm glad I didn't become that person. I'm not a perfect parent by any means. I've made my mistakes. My kids have their own set of traumas, whether it's brought by me thinking I'm protecting them or something that's happened to them by somebody else, because you can't protect your kids all the time as much as you want to. But I am proud of myself for not letting all the abuse consume me and change me and keep me from being a compassionate and kind person and understanding. Because I'm not gonna lie, I used to think that it could never happen to me, and it happened to me. So I'm proud of myself for it. I'm proud of myself for that.
And April, what's something you're finally most proud of yourself for surviving?
The emotional scars, the emotional pain, like I relive this stuff over and over in my head, but it's the emotional pain that resides in me that it just felt like it was so much that I just could not survive it. I could not overcome it. I could not numb it enough. It just like it would never go away. And at the end of one of our podcast sessions, like I brought up I was a cutter. And, that's how I dealt with my emotional pain is I turned it physical and then I processed it that way in the physical, a physical way. And watching that scar heal, watching that wound heal into a scar was like watching part of my emotional pain heal. And once I got sober, I started getting tattoos and, I have a lot, and I started using that as the physical pain to process the emotional pain, and also ending up with this beautiful artwork all over my body. And the last couple of times I've gone in for my sessions, I've had to cut it short because I don't have any more emotional pain to deal with. So it's really hurts really bad when you can't process that as, physical pain processing through to kill the emotional pain. When you have no emotional pain left over to kill, they're really painful. So I'm very grateful that I got to that point to where I really don't have any more emotional pain to numb. So, and that I survived. Like,
Foster?
You know, I want to say all of it. I'm just proud of myself that I'm by the grace of God, I made it through trauma. I made it through 38 years of addiction, IV meth use. I've made it. I made it through anything that they tried to kill me with and tried to put me down with. I made it through it, and today I'm taking all that stuff that was meant for evil and putting it towards good. So all of it. They didn't beat me.
Jules?
I am proud of surviving my childhood. I am proud of surviving all of these ideas false ideas that I believed before I became an addict, because I didn't think it could happen to me either. And I am proud that I survived, like, having to accept the fact that I was an addict, just like my parents, because that was the hardest thing for me. And if I hadn't survived that, I wouldn't have been able to give it a real shot for me, and remain sober. So I'm really proud of dropping the shame of it all, because shame and just sitting in the shame just causes more shame. And it's like, why even bother?
Yeah. And I want to say I'm proud of all of you. I mean, the reason I asked each one of you on here is because I knew your story so well. You know, I've sat with all of you for multiple hours by now because, you know, I wanted to hear everything. I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to talk about everything, to get it off your chest. And I find that it's important, you know, for others that could be watching to feel less alone, that, you know, they aren't alone, that it's happened to other people. And, you know, especially, you know, with everyone thanking Foster, you know, there's a reason I had him on the show. I mean, I've only had, I think, one other guy on the show besides Foster. And it's a very telling thing about where men are still, where they don't want to talk about the things that they've been through in their past. And the first time I met you, Foster, was 4 years ago. And, you know, when you were on my show initially, and it changed me for what trauma could happen with men, because I still vividly remember the opening the show with, so, you know, how long have you been in addiction? And you said 35 years, 36 years. I said, damn, you don't look that old. When did you start getting high? And they said, well, they started getting me high when I was 5. And I said, who's they? And you said, when my stepdad and his sister started abusing me and getting me high so they could abuse me. And that was how the first 3 minutes of the show started. And it changed how I was going to move forward with, you know, that show. And when I started this show, I was like, well, I know exactly who I'm going to ask to do my first episode, because of I know what happened with that. And, you know, you were on the other show 5-6 times by now. And I remember one night I was sitting in the meeting center, you know, just me. And you said, hey, can we hop on real quick and do an episode? And I said, yeah. And you broke down and told me that you had been using the entire time and you weren't really clean. And it was a very real moment. And all the moments I've felt with you have been very real. And, you know, so I'm really glad I got the chance to meet you. And Jules, really glad I got the chance to meet you, because we've done so much, like me on your show when you had one with your mom, and you coming on this show and my other show, and me and you doing Swift Steps and, you know, finding speakers for you. And, you know, April, you know, your story with your mom, your stepmom, and your dad, and then, you know, going to your mom's, like, you know, when we talked on the addiction show, we touched on the trauma. We kind of breezed over it. And then you told me in private messenger, like, hey, we got more, we can talk about more. There's a lot more trauma we didn't get into. And I said, well, let's do the trauma show. And then you told me all that. I was like, holy shit. Like, I can't, no wonder why. And Connie, I had no idea, because like I said earlier, we knew each other since sophomore year when I switched to our high school. And, you sat behind me in homeroom. And I just saw you hated everybody and everyone was afraid of you. Connie had this attitude, like, fuck you, fuck her, on my forehead.
Let me, I'll tell you why everybody, they were scared of me because before you got there, I remember my brother got into a fight with someone, and they held my brother back and they hit my brother when he was being held back. So I jumped into it. So then my younger brother realizes, oh shit, it's my sister. So he jumps into it. So they're like, oh, don't mess with that family because you mess with one, you mess with all. So they were like, we're just gonna leave them alone. You missed that whole fiasco. So that was what it was, and I really wasn't scared of anybody. So, but yeah, that right before you got there, that all transpired. So that a lot of people were like, yeah, we're not gonna mess with them because they're not coming just that one, they're coming all three of them.
So,
and I did hate people.
And then we started talking when you started seeing that I was doing these shows. You messaged me and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. And we started talking more. I'm like, hey, if you ever want to do my show, if you have some trauma, and you're like, I got trauma. And then we just, and then before we even did your episode, you're like, oh yeah, my daughter wants to do an episode and she's 18. I'm like, okay. And then we spent 4 hours, maybe 5.5 hours between 2.5 with her and 2 with you. Like, and you're like, hey, I got more to talk about. And then we talked for another 2 a couple of days later, and I just really appreciate all you taking the time to sit down with me today and previous episodes one-on-one. And, it's not easy to schedule for 5 people to sit down together for a couple hours and let alone discuss everything we've been discussing and let me ask the questions I wanted to ask. So, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time today.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for the honor.
Yeah, thank all of you guys, and thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Well, this will be out tomorrow, so look for it. I'll be sending you guys some more stuff. And thank you again so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah,
All
you
right,
too, JD. Bye, guys.
Bye.